Welcome back to I-86 After Dark. You have me, the Ginger Hammer. Buffalo Bob is here, and it is an honor to have NHL legend, former Buffalo Sabre, and coach Craig Ramsay joining us tonight. And Coach Ramsay, welcome aboard. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you very much. Uh, it's always special to do these kinds of shows. I think it's important for the hockey world, and it's always enjoyable for we old timers to get back in touch whenever we can.
Yeah, well, we absolutely appreciate it. And I know we talked a little bit before we started doing the interview here today, and just a lot of great stories. I know you've already started to tell us as well. But we wanted to just kind of introduce to the fans and just ask, how did you get your start in the sport, and what got you interested in playing hockey initially?
Yeah.
It's okay.
Um, the way I got started was down the street. Was we had 10 homes on our street behind my old friend. He was 2 months younger than me. We used to go down, and an offshoot of the Humber River um, came in and slowed down and gave us real good ice skating in the winter time. And we every snowfall we'd get down there, make sure we got it shoveled off. And uh, one year we put wooden two by fours as the ice was freezing. We jammed them in so we had nets. Unfortunately, my sister slipped and fell one time and broke one of them right off in half and almost
Oh
got
no.
seriously injured, but she was okay. But it was where I learned to skate, and then I played. I didn't play on a team till I was 10, and then in a house league, and then I made the all-star team at 11. And my neighbor was the coach, probably gave me a leg up to find my way on that team. We had uh, 10, 11 players, two lines, uh, and defensemen, and the goalie. So we became, you know, we won the first year we were in Pee Wee. Then we went into the THL against the Marlies and the Red Wings and all those teams. And they'd come in their full uniforms and the same bags. And we walked in with whatever we had, an old jacket and our own bags. It was great fun. I only remember in midget we beat Toronto Marlies once and 2-0, and I scored the first goal, a slapper. It was
Nice.
unusual, but I never forget that in all these years.
That's
Absolutely.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, what were you gonna say, Tom? I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I know one of the things that you had mentioned as you were getting into the NHL and getting into the pro level more was time that you played in Toronto and how you ended up having some of your initial matchups as well, and that was just very interesting with how you mentioned who you were lining up against and of course getting that playing time as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, to start out your career, exhibition it was, but against the Marlies and Dave Keon. And it was not the Marlies, it was the Leafs, but it was pretty wonderful. And you're taking that first face off and you're just staring at him because he was such a great player and such a big part of your history growing up. But um, and then again, beating the Marlies 2-0 with the goal, and there were a lot of things. And my neighbor was the coach from 10 to 16, and Mr. Turney, he was a wonderful man and a great coach. He played in the American League and a couple games in the National League, but um, he was a neighbor, a friend, and really a solid hockey guy. And but he treated all of us with respect and was never, yelling and screaming and all those crazy things that some coaches get into. But he was just a good man with a good heart. And I ended up, moving forward. And one of the great things when I won the Selkie Trophy was getting to thank my parents and getting to thank Mr. Turney and Roger Nielsen as well. But
Yeah,
you don't often get that chance on national television to get out there and uh, thank all the people that put you there.
yeah. And Roger Nielsen, great player and coach in his own right too. And he did a lot of nice things over the years.
Roger was a great organizer, uh, a skilled tactician. He just loved to get his matchups. He loved to put the people in the right position to have success. And uh, it was actually funny. A guy named Steve Durbano, who I first played with, he broke his stick on my ankle in a Marley game, and I had to miss a game. And Roger complained that Durbano should have had more than 3 games because I was going to miss time. And so they suspended him.
Hmm.
And since I couldn't play, I actually coached the game. So I have one junior win in the junior A OHL. So it was nerve-wracking to
Hmm.
be on that bench as your first game and you're only a teammate of these guys. But we found a way to get it done, won the game, which is always the judgment again with you, good or bad, did you win?
Right.
Absolutely. But I actually do have a question for you, Mr. Ramsey, and that is when you first started playing in the NHL, which is probably the greatest league in the world, which I think any Canadian kid would be, adjusting to at that point. But of all teams you get drafted to, you get drafted by the Buffalo Sabres, and then you later find out that you were playing with the guys of like Gilbert Perreault, Rick Martin, Rennie
Hmm.
Robert, obviously you for that matter, Roger Crozier, all these young guys at that time in the 70s in that era. And my question to is that what was it like playing alongside the French Connection?
Well, Richard and and Gilbert, I played against them for a couple of years each before I went to the National League. I was in the junior for 4 years because I started at 16. But Punch Imlach was the manager of the Sabres, and so I got drafted by Punch Imlach, who was, often tarred and feathered in Toronto because he was a bit of an ornery guy and he said and did what he wanted and won some Stanley Cups with Toronto,
Hmm.
uh, including the last one. But, um, it was a great opportunity because I knew how good those guys were. And then we got Rene in a trade, made the line, and uh, that really, really set us up. And then Donnie Luce and I played together for 10 years. But in 70, was it 74, 75, we drafted Danny Gare
Hmm.
and they put him on our line. And he was really an important part of what happened. Um, he scored 30 some goals, and Donnie had over 30. And, we were really successful. A checking line with well, the next year he got 50 goals. A checking line with a 50-goal scorer might do a lot of teams a lot of good.
Right.
Um, but then we made the playoffs and we had our first run at it with against Montreal. And then 75, we beat Montreal. So, all of it, little tidbits and things that happen were really special. And to have that opportunity is something I'm always thankful for.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Great guys. And more recently I had a chance to meet Danny Gare as well. A great
Uh,
person, a great player in his time, and that whole line really had a lot of dominance back at that time as well. And it was just great to see, even watching some of the classic games and just seeing everything that was part of it too. So it was just great to see.
Danny was, a smaller player like myself, and Donnie was a big centerman for us. He won a lot of faceoffs, scored goals, and you know, we were the penalty killing guys. And Danny didn't kill penalties with us, and he didn't play in the first power play. And this his second year, he got 50 goals, and as I said, 50 goal scorer on a checking line is pretty good.
It
Oh
And
yeah.
is.
something pretty special.
Yeah.
So, we were a fairly dominant checking line in those days. And then, Bob Gainey was famous in Montreal and a Selkie winner. He was also Peterborough, played in Peterborough. He's from there. But we had some great matchups with Montreal through the years. I think of all the teams that matched up, we had the French Connection. They were from Montreal, and the games were always really exciting and fast and tenacious. So it was great to be in there and play them.
Absolutely. And I did want to ask, with your time playing with the Buffalo Sabres, what would you say are some of your best memories of being with the club?
Well, one of the best memories was playing with Tim Horton. I mean, at first I had Roger Crozier, and then Tim Horton came in, and I'd grown up watching him as one of the best Maple Leafs ever. And now he came in as a 40-year-old defenseman, and he was such a good player even then. Strong, battle, block shots, do everything a defenseman can do. And we were in Montreal playoffs, and I don't know if it was 73 or 75, but um, I was so exhausted by the end of the one game. We were up a goal, and we always went out for those late face-offs and all that kind of stuff. And I was exhausted, and I looked over, and there's Timmy Horton at 40 years old, just ready to go. And I said, "You can't be tired, kid. You're still, with him doing what he was doing." So it gave me a lot of a little extra incentive to finish up the game and make sure we won it. Um, special Roger Crozier, of course, I'd grown up watching as well, and Gilbert and Rico, um, kids I'd played against in junior, and now we're on the same team, which was really good. I knew I was lucky when I got drafted to Buffalo, knowing I didn't have to play against Gilbert for the next number of years. Um, so yeah, I was a lucky boy, let's face it.
Oh yeah. I mean, of course. I mean, lucky you. You could just be like, "Shoo! I don't have to go up against Joe Perreault, one of the best skaters in the '70s." It's like, holy shit, he's going all around the ice and he's just making these passes and he's just a very good skater, a good passer. I would always defy the odds that Gilbert was basically the Buffalo Sabres, like the identity of the team from that time frame.
Absolutely. I mean, he gave them a chance right off the bat to
Mhm.
make the playoffs. And then I came in, and we actually had a uh, less successful year than it had the year before with Rico and myself. But the next year we made the playoffs, and uh, really developed into a good team. Punch Imlach did a wonderful job of
Mhm.
drafting and getting the players to make that team successful. Um, and he was a gruff guy, but he really cared about all of us young people, and uh, it was just a great place to be. The fans were great. That old Odd was
Mhm.
wonderful. We could see teams coming out there that didn't want to be there. The
Yeah.
small rink, the
Absolutely.
tight corners, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I remember that building well, and as a kid, I'm very thankful I got to see some games in there before the building closed at the end of the '95 season,
Yeah.
and just remembering some of it, the shorter than regulation ice surface, how fast a lot of the action was, the fact that people knew that when they come into the building, they're gonna have to play fast and they're gonna get hit, and there's gonna be a lot of physicality out there, which we don't see as much of now, but it was great to see back at that time, and then just how that whole building was, with the upper deck being super close to the ice and being able to feel like you're right on top of everything, and how loud that building got. Some of the things I remember from there. As a kid when I got to see some games, and then of course I wasn't around yet for when they had the whole issue with the fog in the building, but I do remember hearing some stories about that as well.
Oh yeah. Um, but it was a special building.
It
It
was.
was so tight, and the upper deck was added. So
Hmm.
they raised the roof and added 4,500 seats, I think. But you were out over the rink and looking down, and it
Yeah.
was so steep. I never knew it, but when I retired, I went up there and just went down the stairs just to see what it felt like.
Right.
It
Yeah.
was
It was steep.
it was scary.
Yeah.
One person fell out of that upper deck and landed right beside my wife on top of
Oh, geez.
another lady, and everybody was okay, but he leaned over and went right out. So
Wow.
there was, but it was a wonderful place to play. I remember when the Russians first made their tour against teams, they came out on the ice and they were just looking around and staring at this little thing that they were going to play in. And I don't know, we beat them 12-6 or something like that. A
Nice.
Damn.
couple years later, they brought Trechak and the Red Army team in, and we beat them, I think, 6-1 or something. But, it wasn't a arena built for Euros at that time.
Hmm.
And now they can play anywhere. They're just really great players. And um, but at that time, we had the advantage. They were new to playing against NHL teams, and they weren't used to the physicality of games at that time.
Sure.
But one of the great ones I have to, was Jimmy Schoenfeld.
Mhm.
He hit Wayne Cashman right out of the Zamboni doors, knocked
I
him
remember some clips of
right
that.
through. And
That's awesome.
they got up and they were on their skates on the cement, and the sparks were flying, and uh, they had quite a tussle. I'll tell you, they could throw punches, those guys. And I got to work with Wayne later on in Philadelphia. He was a he was a good coach. He was a great player, and uh, he was a really good guy. So it's
Yeah.
funny that I've stayed in the business and I get to meet a lot of people that I played against for years.
Yeah, absolutely. But because you mentioned the magic D word, which is defensive play, and you mentioned earlier that you won the Selke Award in 1985, which is usually awarded to the best offensive defensive player in the league. I'm going to ask you a coaching question because you do have a resume in this category. You were known for your defensive play and consistency. How did you develop that style? Or was that just given, or did you have to teach yourself how to do that?
No, and I mentioned the two coaches, Bert Turney, that I had from 10 to 16, who taught you in both ends of the rink. And we only had two lines, so you had to do everything. And I played the power play, I killed penalties, and then Roger Nielsen. And, I had 4 years with him. And the last couple of years, we used to talk on the bus and go over strategy and game style and team play and what he would really was interested in what I thought we should do. Sorry, um,
That's all good.
what I should do, what we could do as a team, and um, uh, you know, I was just so darn lucky to have two coaches by the time I turned 20 and went to the National League. Um, that's really special as long as you get two good people. A lot of kids, unfortunately, need grow up with coaches that are yellers and screamers and who, in many ways, take away the gifts of their players by being so critical. I mean, I believe in a philosophy of letting the boys play. Even today, I let the boys play, and then I'll try to fix whatever flaws that show up. And that's one great thing. I have great coaches with me over there, and great video coach, which is never was when I was a young player. But you learn a lot when you sit with those people, and I was always wanting to learn more and develop as a coach and understand the game better. And um, I believe that I've been very lucky in learning from so many different people.
Yeah, as I was gonna say was like, do you think when you were playing in your playing days in the 70s and mid 80s, do you think the game has drastically changed with how systems are adjusted to from like now to when you were playing 40 years ago?
Well, you know what I always said when they talk about the Russians being skaters, and I said we were fast too. And then I started watching last year's Stanley Cup final, and I'm thinking, holy cow,
Yeah,
these kids are fast and they're talented, and they can do things that perhaps only Gilbert could do. Um, the the hockey has grown in my mind leaps and bounds. It's gotten faster as well as skill oriented, and you don't have those fighting years that we had, which I think hurt hockey for a number of years. Uh, but now you've got people that can skate and make plays at the highest of levels, and it's great fun to watch them play.
It
absolutely.
definitely is. It definitely is. And what I wanted to ask is of course you made the jump into coaching from being a player, and one of the things I wanted to ask was how has your coaching philosophy evolved over the years from the time that you were in the NHL over to the international game and working with Team Slovakia?
It's really strange when I get asked that question quite a bit, and my point always is I always believed in that. And if you look at uh, our checking line, as I said, we had a 50 goal scorer on it. One year we had two, Danny and Donnie, both had over 30 goals, and I had 28 or something. But I had eight straight 20 goal seasons. So as much as I was noticed as a checking player, I always believed I was more than that. That eight 20 goal seasons surely means you can score as well. So I've never allowed my players to tell me that, oh, I'm a checker, I don't have to score. I actually had a player say that to me once. I said, not here, kid. You're not doing that. You're going to play here. You're going to try and score goals. I always think about a two-way game, players who can play in both ends of the rink, who understand the game in both ends of the rink, and you can put in any situation. And the European game, uh, to me, was I never changed anything. I told my players they had the forecheck, they had to chase and attack and come back through the middle, but I was never going to play safe or careful. That was my biggest philosophy. I years ago said, safe is death. You play safe, you will not win. You won't be champions. You won't find a way to beat the best teams if you're going to have the players playing safe and careful. So my philosophy has always been to try and outscore a team. And I teach them how to come back, how to back check, how to play in their own end or try to. But um, once we get the puck, I want four-man rushes. I've always coached that way. And now in the National League, every rush is a four-man rush. You got defensemen leading rushes through the D. Um, that Stanley Cup final again was, yeah, the defenseman beating the 2D and scoring a goal. You're like,
Mhm.
wow, that was a defenseman that did that. But in order to score in the National Hockey League or in the best league, uh, you have to have your D involved. Teams are too good in their own zone uh, that you and the back check and things like that. You won't win unless you have all five guys in each line trying to score as well as playing defensively.
That philosophy honestly sounds very familiar. It reminds me of John Tortorella when he was coaching Tampa Bay. And it's funny enough, is I remember that you were an assistant coach with Coach Torts, and I'm thinking, holy shit, this sounds almost exactly identical to how Torts would coach his teams. Aggressive and forechecking style, playing it defensively in the round zone. And I'm thinking, holy shit, this is the same philosophy in a way. But of course, every coach has their different approaches.
Well, we had a plaque made up, safe as death, and it was in our dressing room at home on the door as they went out. But we carried one on the road. The trainers packed one away and put it up above the door in every rink we played in, because that was our philosophy, safe as death. And when we played Philly, uh, the year we went to the finals, we were up game 6 in Philly. I think we were up 4-1, went into the third period, and we didn't say to, but the players played safe. They played not to make a mistake, and no matter what we said, they wouldn't stop. They couldn't. Their mindset had, was like, I can go to the Stanley Cup final if we just don't give up 3 goals and lose. And we gave up 3 goals, went into overtime and lost. Um, but in this, after the second period in game 7, we were up 2-2 nothing, and John came back from his talk, and I was still in the coach's room, and he said, "We're in good shape." Because all I could hear was safe as death as I came down the hall. So the players were into it, and we ended up winning the game and going to the finals. But the philosophy always has to be um, we need to score goals. We want to score goals. For hockey players, the whole game is, boy, I want to score.
Yeah.
So if you take that away from them, you've taken the heart out of every kid that comes along.
Mhm.
But if you tell them, okay, I want you to try and score, I want D to jump up the ice, but then you make sure you teach them with video and talking is how to back check, how to come back and fill the lanes. And, you don't go pick up a guy, you just come back through the middle and take the middle away. If you take the middle away, you win. Uh, so there are a lot of things that go into that coaching philosophy, but the one I feel most importantly is safe as death.
It's a great
That's a good
philosophy.
motto. Absolutely. But speaking of coaching, because you've had a pretty long career, 25, 30 years of coaching, almost maybe 40 if I'm not being exaggerated in this case. I want to ask you about Team Slovakia. And you've been in the stage for a while now. But the question is, what has coaching Team Slovakia taught you about the global hockey landscape?
Well, that it's getting better and better. Uh, when I first went over, Bratislava had a team in the KHL, and I watched the games, and both teams were trapping. And Roger Nielsen and I coached the Trap in Florida as an expansion team, but I hated it. And I tried to adjust it and make it different. And we used to have great discussions over trapping versus attacking. And, we missed the playoffs twice by a point. But the point was when you finally are winning and beating good teams, it's because you're attacking them, not because you're sitting back and trying to wait for them to make a mistake. And I think the game is played so much like that now. It's so fast, uh, and the teams aren't playing safe. They're attacking, but they back check harder. And when we played, um, I was sort of the back checker on my line, and I can remember after one practice, I called Donnie and Danny over, and I said, "Hey, I don't mind back checking them once in a while, but I shouldn't have to do it all the time. You guys got to participate because I'm going to be in front of the net trying to score a goal." And I think that helped us become the effective line we were in those days.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely solidifies your case for sure. I mean, like I said earlier, every coach has their different ways of thinking and how things are supposed to adjust. But it's interesting to me to think that because you coach over in the Slovakia National League team, and because you're over in Europe, I guess whenever you're ready to go there, uh, I guess my question about development per se is that how do European players differ in the mindset or preparation compared to North American players?
Um, when you're NHL, you're playing 81 games. You have to be, it's like every other day kind of thing. In Europe, they don't play like that in their leagues. They play Friday and Sunday, generally, in the odd game in the week. So that part is quite different. They're not used to that same drive. And, uh, since I've been in Slovakia, I have a wonderful video coach, Igor, and he does a great job of getting all these videos after our game and having them ready for the next day. And we do video meetings, individual meetings, whatever it takes. And I think that's the difference. Now Europe does all those things they didn't do before because they want to compete at the best level. And so they have video coaches, sometimes two on a team. And they prepare the same way NHL teams do now. And the thing about a bigger rink really doesn't make any difference. Um, because just in back checking, you back check into the middle of the ice. So it doesn't matter how wide the rink is. It really doesn't. You're coming back in the middle. Um, and it's, in offensively, if you forecheck and get the puck, you find more defensemen open. And that's one of the big things that has changed since I went over, I guess to be 8 years. Uh, but all the teams throughout Europe use the defenseman a lot in the offensive zone. They throw it back to the D. They take shots because they're great players and great teams. And most goals, if you look at all the goals in the National League, tips and rebounds are the number one uh, goal in the NHL. Uh, so you throw it to the point, you get to the front, you try to tip it, or you bang in a rebound. Because teams are so good defensively, it's the best way you have of scoring goals. And I believe the majority of goals in the world now are those point shots and tips.
So, in that philosophy, guys like, just throwing names out here, like Jaromir Jagr, Alexander Mogilny, Alex Ovechkin, some of the greatest European players of all time. I mean, especially Ovi. Ovi, I feel like fits the checkbox of, playing a good forecheck, putting the puck in the net, playing great defensively, etc., etc., etc. And it explains the longevity because the dude's been playing for about 20 years at this point. So he's had a very, very good career. And I think that a lot of European players, as I watch a lot of Euro hockey, and Darius Kasparov actually told us the story recently, and he said that he always wanted to play for the Red Army team. And he basically said that he had no idea that he was going to ever play in Europe, but rather he came over to the NHL and absolutely loved it. But he also said that the players were also bigger and stronger over in Europe when he was getting drafted compared to what they were now.
Well, I don't know. I think that now all the emphasis is on speed. Uh, as I said, dejoining rushes, forechecking properly, getting in positions and working the puck. It all comes down to speed. And uh, I I believe that that's something I've always believed in. And again, I was noted as a checker, but I always felt that I could keep up with people and their speed, and I could do my forechecking and try and score goals and steal the puck, all those kinds of little things. Uh, but the game has gotten faster. And in some cases, you remember there's a few years where Philadelphia Flyers, the Broad Street Bullies,
Nope.
Yeah.
changed hockey. And a lot of teams tried to be like them, thinking that was the way to win the Stanley Cup because they won two in a row. But the reality was it was bad for hockey. And uh, those players eventually found themselves just as big and too slow to play. Just being big uh, didn't mean you could play in the National Hockey League. So it's back, I believe, to speed, and everybody can skate now. There's no one that plays because they're big and strong. They have to be able to skate.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah,
I've
without a doubt.
I've definitely seen a lot more of that as of like the last 10 years, especially with some of the rookie combines and even some of the prospect tournaments that I've been able to jump in and watch here in Buffalo as well, where the speed is absolutely crazy with what you see now. And of course, being able to stick handle, but also forecheck, back check, as you mentioned, and just how a lot of times controlling that neutral zone certainly is important too. And just seeing what those capabilities are now is amazing how how good a lot of these kids are now in terms of the preparation and how they get ready for everything. So,
Oh, they work so hard in their own personal conditioning. They get their own trainers in the summer, which is something we could never afford to do. But the neutral zone that you mentioned has really been the biggest change. That um, playing well in the neutral zone uh, is the way pucks are turned over and counterattacked. And, when I played, at first they wanted you to pick up your winger and follow him up and down the ice, which was crazy, something I would refuse to do. But that was the style then. And left winger was on the left or on the right wall, coming back, and you had to pick up your guy and all that kind of thing. And, believe it or not, there's still some coaches who want the players to pick up their wing, and that the good teams never do that, whether they're European or the NHL. And the European hockey is so good now, so fast. And that's why you have so many players coming in, which hurts the countries. You work hard to produce players, and then the National League grabs them. And I was always in the National League. So to me, that was the way it was supposed to work. But now, we go to world championships, and I got three or four players in the playoffs in the American League or the NHL,
yeah.
and we don't have that many players. So uh, one year I talked to the Canadian guys, and they had turned down more players than we had in Slovakia to even ask. So, um, yeah, but the European teams play really NHL style and NHL speed. Uh, and so the players I'm coaching uh, are really at the NHL level. We have a lot of guys that are in and out or staying over, that kind of thing. Um, but we don't have that many players. So some of the guys that have played in the NHL or the American League the last few years, I've never seen them. And, they put them on the list, top players, but we can't get them because they're always busy doing something in North America. Um, but hockey has improved greatly as far as that goes, to my mind, in the speed, uh, the skill level, of course, but really the speed of the way the game is played, uh, whether in Europe or in the National League.
Yeah, and it actually leads me to a question I wanted to ask you as well. And of course, you work with a lot of younger athletes as part of coaching with Team Slovakia and also throughout your coaching career. What are some ways that you typically like to balance discipline while still allowing creativity?
Boy, that's a great one. Um, uh, there are still some coaches who don't want to see mistakes. And I have told the players, honestly, like, look, I don't care if you make a mistake. We can always work at that. That's my job, is to fix mistakes. But if you don't try and play at the highest level and fastest level, how will I ever know how good you are? And I'd
Yeah,
rather try
exactly.
and fix mistakes than see none. I don't like mistake-free hockey. My coach so many years ago said uh, mistakes are part of hockey, and he never ever said anything on the bench about an individual mistake. Later, he might talk to you, but not at the time. And that's something I've always tried to do. I never. say anything to a player who made a blunder. Came around the net, threw the puck up the middle, picked off, it's in your net. You don't speak to him. You let him, because he obviously knows what he just did. So you let it go until it's kind of a respite and you can get to him and quietly just talked about what he was seeing and what play he could have made instead.
And you know what's really interesting is that Michael Jordan had a quote in his career in the NBA, and he said, "It's okay to fail, but it's not okay to fail and not try." And I think that philosophy has always sticked with me, whether if you're playing in the NHL level or as a coach from experience, because every player and every coach has their own journey with how their philosophies come in mind. But I think what you said, coach, was very important because a lot of kids, at least in this generation, don't really understand the concept of trying. They think just give it a try once and then never do it again. But
But
if you keep trying and trying and trying and you get better and better and better, um, how are you going to fix those mistakes? And then with you, because you coached a lot of great players back in your day, guys like Vincent LeCavalier and Ilya Kovalchuk, all those guys throughout your career, they all said, Coach, what can I do to get better? And then the next thing you know, you said, well, you got to work on this, you got to work on your skating, you got to work on your shot, things like that.
I, when players will ask me that, and I said, just go play.
Hmm.
Just play like you're a kid again. You love the game. You love what you're doing. Just go play. And then if something doesn't work, that's my job then to help and fix it and find a way to change it. But if you're always afraid to make a mistake, if you just think of it in its face value, uh, you're not going to give it your best effort because you're waiting not to make a mistake. And the point is, you should be always in your mind thinking of how can I chase the puck, get it back, and hold on to it. And what I love are players who can get the puck and keep it. So, what is it? I say, get the puck, keep the puck, shoot the puck. That's one of my three sayings we have on the wall. And forecheck it hard, get the puck back. Don't throw it away and hope it works. Don't just toss it where somebody's supposed to be. Keep it until you can make a good play. And by holding onto the puck in the offensive zone, so many teams, players will collapse and attack you, and then you make the play to the point, as I've said, and uh, suddenly they're scrambling, and that's the most important thing. How do you make them uncomfortable in their end? And
Absolutely.
you have to believe in it and do it.
Well, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, every coach's job is to always help. And the funny thing is that Tom and I are big like sports fans, and it's like he's all in for the Sabres, I'm all in for the Islanders, and we've both seen our fair share of competence and coaching and great players throughout both of our times. Like for me, right now I'm going through seeing guys like Matthew Schaefer coming up, and then for him, he's got players like Rasmus Dahlin coming up, and then you had Dominic Hasek coming up, and then fortunately for me, I had Rick DiPietro. I mean, that doesn't really do anything for me because, well, they didn't do too well. But I do want to ask another important question about coaching because you're a very good, communicator with your players, and it's very abundantly clear to us. But what would you say was the most important trait you always looked for in a player beyond raw talent?
The most important thing is a willingness to make a mistake. And that's hard to believe. You know, I said I was not a perfect player. I don't want a perfect player. I'm not interested in a perfect player. If a guy plays a whole game and doesn't make a mistake, he ain't trying. And that's the most important thing. Can you try um, your hardest? Can you do everything you can to win a game? And if you do that, then the coach has a better chance to help you, and you have a better chance to help your team. And it's hard to believe, but you get players, they're so excited to be in the National Hockey League, they try not to make a mistake. And it's the same to make the national team in Slovakia. You're so excited to be there, you don't want to make a mistake. But that's, as I tell them, that's not what I'm interested in. I don't care if you make a mistake. That's my job. Uh, but your job is to do everything you can to be the best player you can be. And the best player you can be is an important small sentence. And if players will do that, they have to trust that the coaches will allow it. And the mistake they make doing it won't haunt them. So I find that one of the most important things for coaching is that don't tell the players to go out and try hard and do their best and then get on them for every mistake they make. Uh, that's not the way to coach a kid, a young player. They're all kids to me now, but uh, let them play, and then you fine tune it. But you don't start off with this dead nuts philosophy. You be here, you be here, you be here. And that's what it was when I first started. But I said, that's silly. I'm not doing that. And so I used to attack across the ice. And if I couldn't block it or get it back, and I just swing back to the middle and get somebody. So I never left my team in trouble. And I think at the time, not a lot of my coaches really understood what I was doing, but they saw it work. So they never said anything. Uh, Guys would get in trouble for not having their winger, but I did not. And that's the only reason I can think is that because what I did worked, and the times it didn't, I still had to allow myself to get back. And as long as you've, as I said, back check down the middle, you're going to be okay.
Absolutely. And of course, one of the things I wanted to ask is, as you've gone throughout your career, what would you say has been the most important piece of advice that you have ever received?
Um, Really, it has to be again a coach not speaking to me. That's hard to believe, but not speaking because I was this defensive player, but I would make mistakes. Guys would score, whatever. But often when I was a young player in the NHL, my coaches didn't say anything to me. And that's all I cared about was don't bother me and I won't bother you. That's a Gilbert Perreault quote, but um, that's what it was. The best game decisions are not saying anything. Give the player a chance to calm down, to think about his own mistake, and then you have a chance to talk to him. Maybe it's all the way to between periods. Maybe it's the next day. But to have an immediate reaction on the bench, um, to be hypercritical of your own players, I just think that it's fraught with danger. It's not going to give you the result you hope for. And, sometimes it's hard as a coach to. Uh, I had somebody tell me, why do you always have your arms together? And I said, it's because I don't want to yell at somebody. Um, I give them time to calm down, and then we discuss it, and they come to understand. And I give them the opportunity to figure it out themselves first, and then I direct it the way I think.
Yeah. And so the last question I have, because I just got to tell you, Coach, that it has been an absolute honor to have you on the show tonight. But there is one question left that we probably want to ask you is
Well, thank
you've
you
had a
very much.
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So the question that I want to leave behind is that you've had a legendary career playing in the NHL, playing internationally, or coaching, I should say, internationally, coaching multiple teams from like Buffalo to Philly to Atlanta. You've won a Stanley Cup. You have a Selke Award. You've done all that. And let's just say you've had a legendary career. What legacy do you hope to leave behind in the world of hockey?
That's a that's another great one. But I believe what I want all players to understand and coaches to understand: do not pigeonhole a player into something. I don't think that a player can say to a coach, "Well, I'm a scorer. I don't have to back check," or vice versa. I'm a checker. I don't have to score. It is about learning the game in both ends of the rink and making yourself a valuable member of your team in all levels of the game: power play, penalty killing, you name it. Uh, have the ability to play the last minute of a game, the last minute of a period, but more importantly, the last minute of a game when you're up a goal or tied a goal and the face-offs in your own end. Can you go out there and have the confidence to get the job done? I remember Billy Height was one of my favorite defensemen that I played with. Uh, and we'd be out for the last minute all the time. And I'd just say, just shoot it around my boards, kid. Uh, I'll get it out. Don't worry. And that's what we'd do. Just try to fire it up my boards, and I'd turn my back and fight off the D and chip it out or get it across the ice. Something. So give your players that opportunity to make a mistake, to be part of both ends of the rink. Don't pigeonhole them into something and take away what gifts they really have.
That's a
Absolutely.
great way to look at it, and I just want to say it has been a fun hour to have you here and learn about your philosophy, the game, and your experiences as well. And certainly, it's been a pleasure. And Coach Ramsay, you're always welcome back anytime you would love to come on. We
Well, I'd
certainly
love
would
to
love
come
to have you
back.
here.
I'd love to come back because this was a
Absolutely.
fun hour. And I get the biggest kick out of talking hockey with people. And
Absolutely.
you guys had great questions and great insights into the game. And I hope that I passed on some useful information.
You did, and what I can say about tonight too is just learning about a lot of different things that you've been involved with and your coaching history and everything. Very fascinating, but you also have a lot of great advice you also passed on during the interview tonight too, which is certainly great, and it's things we can use in the everyday world as well. So I just want to say we absolutely appreciate you spending the time. We would absolutely love to have you back, and you're always welcome back anytime.
Well, let's make a time soon because this has been fun.
Well,
I've really enjoyed it, boys. You're doing a hell of a job.
Thank you
we
very much,
appreciate
Coach.
it.
That
We
means a
appreciate
lot.
it, Coach.
All right. See you later, fellas.
All right, you're
Have a good night,
welcome.
Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
Bye.
Take care.